Greetings and happy middle of the night to all our chess friends. See if I got this one right. Game 10. Oh, looks like there's a little something wrong. Good morning, Matt Chess. Good morning, Ollie. Okay. Which window is wrong? This one here. Okay. Do we have a Queen's Gambit today? If only I were still in France. I know I wouldn't be bleeding from my eyes if I were still in France. Or, no, it's a London system. It's a repeat of their London system game. That's what it is. That's what it is. Hey, Leviathan. Hey, Become One. No, I'm feeling worse again. But okay, we'll get into it. It's a London. It's black who's added the c pawn to the center, not white. Let's try and find these boards, and we can start talking about what's going on. Although they're repeating the opening from a previous game. Ding played something like c3 or knight bd2 last time, then bishop d6, bishop b5 check. So bishop e2 is him switching it up. Interesting that, I mean, according to what I see here, it looks like Gukesh hesitated a tiny bit about whether or not to repeat, and then played e6, hesitated again, continued to repeat. But Ding has already played bishop e2 and is moving the game in a slightly different direction. Okay, interesting. Hey, cute kitty cat. So, in a previous game, this was the line for which Ding and Gukesh had honestly been the most booked up of any game they've had. But it's also a line where previously Ding got his best opening advantage. So interesting. Takes on c5, recaptures. That may look obvious, but actually, I would guess Gukesh has an alternative in trading on f4, right? Followed by queen a5 check and picking up this pawn. But this structure here, I guess, favors white's control over the dark squares. Yeah? Hi, Asher! So he had a choice here, but he plays the choice I would have played, which is to keep the bishop and take on c5. Sort of it's just my old biases. It's not like a super instinct or something like that. Basically, my instinct from as long ago as I can remember, the dawning of my chess time, was that if you've got two equalish choices and one of them keeps more pieces on the board and one of them trades more, I would keep more pieces on the board. So bishop g3, Berlin chess, you're saying that in this specific position or in a lot of the positions where the bishops face each other, white plays bishop g3? Which are you saying? So I think it's pretty rare for white to play bishop e2 instead of bishop d3. in the London like this. So I don't personally know this position with any, you know, detail or familiarity or anything like that. Yeah, that's the major trade-off of this position, Cute Kitty Cat, is black has more center pawns, right? 2 to 1, and white got the bishop outside the pawn chain. We can also say that white is slightly ahead in development, although they'll probably spend their development to play c4, which he just played as we say it. Technically, white could here connect the rooks faster than black to show a development lead. So that would look like you have castles, knight c3, knight c6, queen d2. Technically, the rooks see each other first, right? And black still has 2 moves to make to get this bishop out, unless it goes to d7. So this shows you that white has gained a bit of time in this opening already, right? Because normally, if the timing were equal, the moment you, as white, let your rooks see each other, your opponent would be 1 move away from doing the same. Does that make sense? However, if you played this way, your position here with white would be very lame. You'd have trouble using your extra time, right? Because there's no open lines, really, no pawn break for white to play, like nothing to do. So then you'd sit there like, I'm developed first and I can't do anything with it. Do you see how in this position, if you wanted to do something as white, you would play c4 through the knight, basically? Once you reach this point, there'd be nothing else to do. Does that make sense? Like, that would be the only thing you could do with this position. Maybe like a pawn sack with e4, but not really sure how you would be justifying that pawn sack. So alternatively, you could play rook e1, bishop d3, and try and play e4, but then you're burning your extra time there, right? Because you're playing bishop e2 and bishop d3. So that explains why he plays c4 as basically the only really logical move to put some pressure on black. But I wonder if this now transposes to some Queen's Gambit declines with bishop f4 instead of a normal London. It is shocking how quickly they're getting into fairly fresh positions, as people from chat are informing me that after c4 is played, there's basically 1 low-level game left in the database. You know, no super GM material here. So with c4, yes, white has a chance to still have 1 move faster development than black. Compared to knight c3 and queen d2, you could try to be 2 moves faster. So if black plays a move b6 to let the bishop out, white will be up 1 tempo. So they'll still have something, and they'll have this lever, so the extra tempo will matter more because they can start making the C and D files matter in this game. Okay, and bishop d7 from black is going to be lame. So black needs like a good approach to this position. Sorry. Should keep my arrows on the board for later. Okay, so for now he just castles, knight c6. I see. He has the idea that he'll push ahead with d4 maybe. If white played knight c3. It's amazing that they are able to get fresh positions so consistently and so quickly. All right, Tiger Cubby saying now it's transposing back to a few games. Yeah. Interesting. I agree, Asher. Knight c6 looks good. It looks most flexible. Basically, if he can threaten... Oh, and Ding's just played a move, Knight c3. If he can threaten to play something like e5 and d4 and force Ding to trade on d5, then his bishop... If he can force Ding to take on d5, then this bishop can develop in one move to somewhere better, right? But okay, Ding challenges that idea with Knight c3. Gukesh is playing incredibly quickly considering the strange move order. He seems very well prepared for this. He now trades on c4. And now, if White takes back on c4, doesn't White have the entire move bishop f4 for free? Like sort of the through the pawn chain move? Be frustrated that everything is equal, says Alexa. Well, I'm at the moment I'm comparing these bishops, and there's nothing about this position that says that everything is equal. I would guess that Gukesh's plan... Oh, no, I was going to say I would guess Gukesh's plan is to bring the bishop out this way, right? Like to play, for example, bishop takes c4, a6, queen e2, b5, get rook d1, step out of the way, this comes here, you come here. Beautiful, right? Pieces are fine. But, welcome to the dojo, Lux Tenebris. Absolutely not. The Sensei eval is not the engine. In the Chess Dojo, Jesse, Kostya, and I are called the senseis because we are 3 chess teachers who, to some extent, lead the dojo community, right? And so the sensei eval is the evaluation that one or more of us teachers ascribe to the position. So it can give you a quick inkling of who might be better or worse. If you pop into the stream without having time to listen to everything we've said, if you've just been in the stream listening to everything we've said, you don't really need the eval bar that we've put up because you know in detail how we're feeling about everything. You know how easy or hard it is to play for white or black, who might be feeling good about the opening they got, blah, you get a lot. But if you're popping in and out, if you're at work or something like that, that'll give you a quick sense of who we think might be better at the moment. And right now I have it set to 0.15, which is a standard, really minuscule white advantage in the opening nowadays. With computer preparation, the size of the white advantage has decreased a bit. It also has to do with the supercomputers perhaps having a further horizon than the older computers, so they can see further towards an advantage petering out. So that's what that is, Lux. Yeah. So it could be wrong, is one of the important things about that evaluation. It could be super wrong. It could be sometimes wrong, sometimes right, etc. We've often been in the ballpark, which is, what it's supposed to give. I look like a madman. In what sense, Lazy Sat? Yes, certainly you won't have seen this on any other channel. It is both old school and novel. Interesting, huh, Lex? We're old school and cutting edge at the same time? What? Whatever influence Jesse has on me, Lazy Sat, it's been at work for like 20 years. Just the look in my eyes. The look in my eyes is just too much awake when should be asleep. Every day, it's taking me an extra 1 or 2 minutes to get out of bed. You know, the alarm rings for me at 12:45 a.m. every day. And at first, I just got up. Then I got up at 12:47, 12:49, 12:51, 12:53. Today, it was 12:59. And I only got the stream started at 1:01. So I was late for the first time. It's now a lie that we've covered every single minute of the World Championship, unfortunately, because I failed slightly today. I sort of tried, but... Okay. He's recaptured. He gave it a minute or two of thought, and now Gukesh is giving a minute or two of thought. So I gave a first plan for black, right? Where you go here, a6, to bring the bishop to this nice long diagonal. There's totally secondary approach possible, which is after d c4, you could try and play for e5, right? So we could go bishop c4, queen e7, and try to play e5 as quickly as possible and let the bishop out in the other direction. So then if white goes queen e2, we play e5, bishop g5. Threatening knight d5. Bishop e6. This approach is looking immediately riskier for black. Come to India. I've never been to India, Lazy Sat, but thank you for the invitation. Oh, that's great news from Tiger Cubby. He says, today in the post-game analysis, in the press conference, they won't show the computer evaluations to the players as they're commenting on the game, so the players won't just reject what they said during the game and echo the eval bar. They'll be able to just tell you what they really were thinking. After queen d1, Mora stock. Okay. Which is an option for Gukesh in the live position. So Mora stock is wondering, you know, if black after bishop takes c4 plays a third approach to trade off, will this just peter out, right? I just gave you two approaches. One approach was playing a6 and b5 like this would be like a Moran approach from black, and I think this position looked rather playable and acceptable and plausible. Then I showed you a second position where for black I tried to push e5 quickly. That version looked pretty bad. Here as black I was afraid of knight to d5, so I played bishop e6 to try and cover the d5 square. And after knight e4 I still felt like black was clearly coming under some unpleasantness. So now we've got a third approach here. Suggestion from Mora saying, hey, what if Gukesh just trades? Would this peter out? To me, no. You know, there's a lot of Queen's Gambit accepted lines, right? With d takes c4 and the queen's trade early on. And the game doesn't necessarily peter out. To me, here you can really feel the advantage of this bishop compared to this bishop. Plus the fact that black made actively that trade on d1 brought white's rook to the d file first. So white gets a little bit of, I mean, a small bit, but a little bit of a development boost here as well. And I see possibly knight b5 to c7 mixing up black's development early on here. I suppose black would still play a move like a6 going for b5. But then knight a4 might be an important moment. If the bishop goes this way, the knight gets into b6. And if the bishop goes this way, then white's bishop will get into d6. So either way, black will have to give up a little bit of a square. And let's see, we could go like here. b5, bishop e2, bishop b7. Not forced, just investigating a little bit for for our friend and for all of us, you know, to get a feeling for this. So I got to go knight c5 here. But it looks like I'm picking up the bishop pair for white with this knight a4 maneuver. That's just a first look at the queen trade, right? I played a6 for black because if I go b6, then this might confuse my pieces. Maybe I still go here so that on knight e7 the rook can come out. And then against knight d6, I again give up the bishop pair. I mean, the advantage of the bishop pair is not like overwhelming here, but we've seen people play this Queen's Gambit accepted pawn structure thousands of times with an advantage just like this little bishop pair. And, you know, sometimes they get something out of it. Who was it recently? I think it was Vincent Kamer. Yeah, Vincent Kamer, the top German player, and he's young, about 20, I would guess. He's just on the cusp between junior and adult, but he's a super GM. For those who don't know, over 2,700, top German player. He recently played a very streaky tournament where he started off with like 4 wins and ended with 2 losses. But his best game was an end game that he won just off of this bishop pair from this structure here. So people grind it and try it all the time. So that's my long answer, Maura. I would not say that clearly peters at all. And your opinion is aligned with mine. Your noob opinion, which I guess is the same as an I am opinion here, is that giving the dark squared bishop on that f4 diagonal and the d file for the rook is enough for a game. Yep. And this is a Report Aronian game from 2008 they've transposed into. So Report being Ding's second, or one of Ding's assistants here at this tournament. I saw that Ni Hua is another assistant of his. He's going to be familiar for sure and have some ideas in mind. So they spent, Ding spent 10 minutes maneuvering the move order here and thinking, but he's in territory he knows. Yeah, 2018, 6 years ago. Yeah. And leave it to a German to know Kamer's birthday. Lumbra tells us Kamer turned 20 on November 15th, 3 weeks ago. So indeed, he's just on that cusp of whether or not was a top junior. Sure, Sankhya, I can cover that. It was in the queen trade variation, right? Very, very polite of you to not think that I was blundering and to want me to explain how I got these pieces forked. So in this position here, knight a4, bishop back. I mentioned to you all that what I wanted to do was put the bishop in, sink the bishop into d6, right? I didn't do it because after b5, I wasn't sure how to justify these pieces being forked, and it looked like I would end up trading 1-2 pieces for a rook, right? Sorry, chess.com. And I don't want to trade 2 minor pieces for a rook. So instead, I deviated from my main plan with this rook c1 move first. And the point was that after b5, my rook will be attacking the knight. So I'll save my bishop. And black could have taken the knight. It was an alternative to what I did, right? Black could have taken the knight, and then I would have taken here. And in this variation, you'll see the black pieces are developing more freely, but they've got a weak pawn over here on a4. Right? So not everything is necessarily going to be easy here either, but it's an option. I could imagine black playing this way, perhaps. perhaps. In the game, I defended the knight on c6 for black with the bishop development, and then I went knight c5 for white. Alexa said earlier that it felt like a line Alexa would play, and it turns out Alexa has a bunch of blitz games in this position, so wow. Exactly how Alexa would play. Yeah, but great question on Sankhya, so thank you for asking that. Did Gukesh play a move here? No, he has not. Deep Space Bear, I would say e5 is rarely going to work as a pawn sack here, mainly because it won't actually misplace white's pieces. It frees your bishop, which is obviously a good goal, but it doesn't misplace white's pieces. You know, I mean, look at, to capture the pawn, white's pieces have to go into the center. This is where every piece wants to be, right? Every minor piece, kind of. These pieces are all great. So white's basically up a pawn for nothing. So that shows sort of the difficulty of getting the bishop out. You know, if we're making huge concessions or sacrifices to do so, it's saying black's got a real disadvantage in their position. So far, the line that looked best for me was a6, b5. Of the three lines I've tried queen e7 to play e5 without sacking the pawn. I've tried queen d1. And I've tried a6. And to me, the a6 move looked quite okay. And Martin is saying here, they would go for either a6 or b6, yeah. Probably against b6, one of the moves you have to reckon with again would be knight b5, right? Going after these squares while you're finishing the development. Sorry to hear it, Ron. As you know, I have experience with that this week, so get some rest, and we'll see you for game 11 tomorrow. And I imagine also from my knowledge of Gukesh's past games and personality and everything, I would imagine that a6, b5 is definitely the first plan that Gukesh would look at. And then, you know, he may or may not like what he sees and have some reason to play a different plan, but I think that's the first thing. The first thing he would look at. Let me look at a6, queen e2 for a second. I just want to confirm that this sacrifice doesn't work. I expected that the move queen b6 would refute it. That was two pieces for a pawn, and the idea is we attack these two pieces at the end, and maybe we could even attack them more somehow on the c-file if we want to. But for tactical operations, you know, the fact that there's still a knight on c3 is like a big deal. Like, you're not hitting these pieces fast enough, probably. So here I was thinking queen b6 would probably hold it, and I just want to, you know, double check that while Gukesh is having a good think today. We can see that Gukesh has been out-prepared or out-surprised by a certain sense here. It doesn't mean that he has a bad position necessarily. We're just talking about this theme that we talk about every day of, you know, who knew the opening better on that day? Who kind of got the other player into some kind of surprise or some kind of plan of theirs, and then the other player has to deal with it. So, am I misspeaking every other sentence, Asher? you can watch a brain melt in real time here, folks. My apologies. My apologies. I don't aim to be professional, but I do aim to speak somewhat correctly. Okay, as far as I can tell, yeah, this confirms it. Black defends both minor pieces, offers a queen trade, which white can't take, and white should just lose, quite basically, here. I am tired as hell, yes. It's not good, though. Not good. Okay, so that is the piece sack. It does not work. I think previously I threw in the move rook d1 here after b5 maybe. Played queen e7, then retreated the bishop. It could go to d3 as well, either square. Right, and I played bishop b7 for black and said that, you know, yeah, I kind of liked black's position. I mean, by liked, I don't mean black's better, just this is the most normal and acceptable looking position we've seen so far. Thank you, Asher. No, I appreciate that. One knight d5 looks interesting. Martin, you mean in the live position, Gukesh could play knight d5? Here? No. No, you must mean somewhere else. Sorry, Samuel. To be clear to everybody, this board over here is the board on which I tootle around trying to figure out what's going on for us, and the board down there is the board on which we keep the live position so you can check what's really going on. And that way, if there's any fireworks over here, you can look down there and be like, oh yeah, it's just fantasy. Instead of the bishop, can we sacrifice the knight? Yes, you could call me tomorrow in my sack line, but that's not even going to attack the black pieces with the queen, really, right? So in this position here, if you sack the knight, takes, we don't get that queen attacking two pieces. Oh, but you do have the file open to attack both pieces next. Tricky. So if black did something like bishop to b7 or d7, right, you're now going to line up both pieces. Did not expect there to be any real pressure here, but look, I mean, if I defend everything like this, then this could come, and now it does feel like I'm hanging black's pieces, doesn't it? Okay, so we're going to have to look at this question from Call Me Tomorrow more precisely. What if white sacks the knight first? That is so weird. Okay, it's not... It's not awesome, but I think I see a way to at least keep the extra piece versus two pawns for the moment. Small amount of material here, but we start like this. Bishop a6 here. Somebody asked. Yeah, I've got my eye on this bishop a6 theme. At the moment, white can take it, and we don't have it covered enough. So I'm going to start with knight b4. And my point is that now if you attack the bishop on c5, I will just retreat. Or at least I'll only have one piece attacked, right? So I'm free to retreat whenever I need to or want to. If a3, I can go knight d5 and sort of get a pseudo tempo on this bishop like so, and, develop, and, at some point, white can play e4 and harass my pieces. White doesn't have, a cold dead nothing for the piece, but I think it's not quite enough either, Divizio, I would say there's no clear favorite at this point. They've played pretty evenly for 9 games so far. Gukesh had some match initiative, you could say, in games 7 and 8. It was feeling like he had Ding a little bit on the ropes, like he was getting some good positions and some winning chances. But, there's only 5 games left, and they've played 9 games equally. So I would say they're very, very, very close. And yeah, that's what I would say. I would favor Gukesh still, but like by a very small margin. Yeah. Very small. I would favor Gukesh, but it's probably more accurate to say that I consider it a toss-up than to say that I favor him. You see what I mean? Like, it's by such a small margin. Why is there a separate women's chess championship when there could be a single unified chess champion? There is a single unified chess champion. It's Ding Liren of China. There's also separate Blitz and Rapid championships and all kinds of championships of various kinds. Youth championships of all kinds of age groups, boys and girls, and all sorts of stuff. And the reason specifically why a women's chess championship exists is that the idea was that it would provide... there's several reasons, but I think the number one reason is that it would provide an incentive for the top women players to play more and to be, professional players and be able to earn a livelihood playing. Because, historically there have been far fewer women playing chess, and so, there's yet to be a woman who, I guess there's been one woman who was just about candidates level, but over the scope of historical time, and certainly when the women's championship was created, there was no woman who could really compete for the overall championships. So the idea is to get an underrepresented group to participate more, and then I think that was sort of like the main idea, maybe. Okay, so back to Divizio's question about the position or the players at hand. Gukesh is sometimes over-optimistic and overvaluates the position, as quoted by Hikaru. What do I think? A little bit. But, it's also a mutual mind-reading situation, Divizio. So first of all, Gukesh is going to be a confident player. Most players are slightly confident. In other words, slightly over-optimistic compared to... pure, what would you call it? Like realism or objectivity, right? Most players are going to be slightly optimistic, and that is better. If you were 1 or 2% optimistic, it actually leads to better results, I think, overall for players than being 100% objective. Having some tiny bit of extra belief in yourself, your positional ideas, your skills, your game position, all of that, lifts you up, right? The most objective players sometimes don't play hard enough. You know what I mean? They don't... Kramnik could be an example, perhaps, of one of the most objective players, historically speaking. We've got to move from Gukesh after 20 plus minutes of thought, right? About 24 minutes, I would say. Kramnik is one of the most, and it's quite an interesting move. It's an approach that I had not considered, so we're going to have to talk about it. But I'm midway through a question, so I'll keep going. So Peter Lecko and Kramnik, who happened to play a World Championship match together, Deep Space Bear correctly adds Peter Lecko to that category of players who are too objective. And what it means is And I wonder if Tigran Petrosian might also slightly fall into this category. But let's just talk about Peter Leko and Kramnik right now, who are more modern players who many of us might know something about, and I can be more confident about having watched their matches live. They would see that they didn't have any advantage, and they would play in a style which most people would call unambitious. You know what I mean? I know, Francois, but bear with me as I talk about Kramnik, the chess player, right? From 20 years ago when he was one of the best players in the world, and even 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So basically they would see like, well, yes, I have these plans, but my opponent has these plans, and actually it's equal. And then, they would make lots of draws, and people would complain that their chess play was unambitious, basically. So for Gukesh to be a little bit optimistic is fine. Of course, Divisio says, could it backfire? Yes, if you're too over-optimistic, it can backfire. And so Gukesh, for example, you see him pressing for wins in positions where other people wouldn't. But I don't think that Gukesh thought his position was better. Like when he avoided a draw in the last London system, the game where Ding got his best opening advantage of the entire match, Ding tried to repeat positions with the advantage, and Gukesh avoided it. And that would be an example of where it could backfire. That's a strong belief in himself and disdain for the draw. I don't think it's a sign that he has a lack of objectivity about the chess position. I imagine Gukesh knew he was worse in that game, right? So there's optimism about your position, and there's optimism about your skills, right? So you could believe you're better than your opponent, or you could believe your position's better than the opponent. And those are two different issues. Gukesh probably has some of both, belief in himself and perhaps a little optimism about his positions. It's natural that basically when you're playing into a position, you're following your ideas and your opponent's following their ideas. And if you at all disagree with them about chess ideas, you're going to generally think that your idea is more correct when there's sort of this battle of ideas going on below the surface in a chess game. Sorry for anybody new, this is getting like a little philosophical and out there, and you may not follow all of this, but that's okay. There's something for everyone at different points. So, in the coverage and the discussions here. Yeah, exactly, Sankhya. Some people would call that unambitious play boring, right? In other words, you're not even trying a plan because you can see how your opponent defends, right? And Petrosian and Kramnik and Leko are all players who've been accused of being boring at times, right? And they're all players who probably fall into this category of they're just very objective and good at seeing their opponent's ideas. So they can see that what they would do would get refuted, and then they don't go for it. Or even they just see it would get defended, and then they don't even try, even though another player who doesn't see what the opponent can do would try it, and 1 out of 10 opponents wouldn't defend correctly, and then they would win more games by having tried an idea. Okay, so hopefully that's like a good answer to that. I guess I would just say, like, I don't see any sign that this is something that's going to bite Gukesh. I don't think his ambitiousness or optimism is anything super extreme or out there. So whether you're Indian or from somewhere else and just a fan of Gukesh anyway, I don't think we need to be too worried about that. All right. So knight h5. So going after the bishop, because it's outside the pawn chain, right? So when you're out there, things can happen to you, right? The bishop's out there, out in the world, where good and bad things can happen to it. I'm a little surprised by this, and my first thought is that white has this move, bishop g5, dodging away from the knight. If white leaves the bishop to be taken on f4, like this kind of a move, this I don't trust for white, because I think the bishop is too good. There are positions in the London where white gets this pawn structure and then uses it to put a knight on e5. But they're more French-like positions where black still has a pawn on d5 and white still has a pawn on c3. Those positions are more closed. You can set up the knight on e5 and play towards the king side here. Black has, for example, an immediate knight d4, trading off that knight and, clarifying some dark square space for these pieces, threatening queen takes f4. I mean, again, white's going to have a little tempo here, a little time while black's catching up in development. But I fundamentally just don't see much potential for white in this position, right? This bishop's stymied. You're facing the bishop pair. I don't really believe this thing. The World Championship has gone through many different rule sets, Divisio. There was a time where the challenger had to win by a full point. So if the match were tied, the sitting champion would just keep the title. There was a time where the challenger had to win by 2 points. There have also been times where there was no such thing as a tie. They would play to a certain number of wins. That was the system for a very long time. So let's say to win the World Championship, you had to win 10 games. You'd play as many games as necessary to get to 10 games. So if the players were tied 8-8, they would just play till someone got to 10. It could never end as a tie, right? Because, it could be tied at 9-9, and then eventually somebody wins the 10th game, and the other person wouldn't have a chance to win back a 10th game at that point. It would just be 10-9, they would win the match. So a bunch of the original World Championship matches, like the Steinitz matches, if you know who that is, the Steinitz World Championship matches in the 1880s, 1890s were first to win 10 games. Yeah. Great system. First official world champion, exactly. And there are some talks of, Morphy being the best player in the world before him and sort of a quasi-unofficial world champion. But Steinitz was the first person who really codified it and, called his matches the World Championship matches, and everyone else called them that as well. And he did a lot of work to establish it. If you're interested in the history of the World Championship, we have a 4-part series in our podcast that we just released in November in the run-up to this World Championship, where we talk about every single World Championship match there ever was. So anyone who's interested in that, you can go back there and find it. So knight h5. I have been told by someone in chat that there was a Portish-Vaganian game like this that led to a draw. Yeah. A first to 10 wins format would definitely work differently in today's world, where the players tend to draw 70 to 80% of their games at this level, right? At this top. Assume that most World Championship matches are going to be contested by top 5 players, right? It doesn't have to be number 1 versus number 2, but it's rarely going to be, number 10 versus number 20. Generally, it's going to be 2 top 5 players. And at a top 5 level in modern chess, they play 70-80% draws. So to win by a score of something like 10-8, you would imagine you could extrapolate that the match would last about 70 to 100 games. And so it would be a very, very long match. Not completely impossible, but that would be the longest World Championship match ever if it was played according to those rules. And a player who was behind could also stop trying to catch up. And so the closest modern example we have to this was a Kasparov versus Karpov match in 1984, which I think was played to the first to win 6 games. Not 10, but 6. And they played 40-some games. I want to say like 45 games before the match was halted due to the ill health of one of the players and the fact that it had been going on forever. And I think at the time the score was 4-3. So they hadn't yet gotten to 6 wins. And what had happened there was that Kasparov had started out the match behind by 3-0, I think, or maybe even 4-0 at some point. And so he decided to just extend the match as long as possible. Just, staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. And so he was able to put together a streak of like 25 consecutive draws. Just to gain time and, avoid death. So if you had a match that was to best of 10 games with the modern opening prep, modern level of play, the players have gotten better and better at playing. And somebody was down, 8-5 and decided to start drawing as many games as possible to extend the match. Yeah, you could get a match that would go even beyond that 100 games, perhaps, that I estimated would be on average. And that could get unwieldy, I think. I think first player to win 5 or 6 games would be a more plausible format nowadays than first to win 10 games. But okay, so this is one historical reference for this position. Very, very historical, right? Portish and Vaganian are some old school top grandmasters from like 1980 or so. It's probably around the era that game is from that was quoted to me in chat. Jacob Egger has an interesting question. Do I think the strong characters in the olden times, like Fischer, Korchnoi, Kasparov, etc., are a product of the tough political times? I feel most top players now are pretty tame. Jacob, I was thinking about how, in the past, chess players had this reputation for being crazy and weird and eccentric and nerdy and stuff like that. And, a lot of the world champions did tend to lose their minds as well as other top 5 players sometimes. And now we've got a lot of top players who almost seem like normal people who happen to be professional chess players, right? Like Magnus, who's into sports and all kinds of other interests, who did modeling, who is sort of like entrepreneurial with designing chess apps or products or whatever. Anand, who seems like a very, very well adapted person. Kramnik's fighting for that old chess players are crazy thing, right? He's like, we're not done being crazy yet. A little bit these days, but yeah, more and more chess players just seem like normal people who happen to play chess. Is it because of changing political times? I don't know. That's an interesting theory. I haven't thought about it before. Your theory sounds possible. First to win 5 games would also take a while, Omar, but it would be certainly possible. The players could do it. Players could do it. I think 5 games is within the realm of possibility for them. So let's look at this position for a little bit, right? Ding's been calculating for 20 minutes, and we're just talking about, all the subjects around chess, doing the runaround of topics. But let's have a look at this position for a moment, right? Bishop g5. So Asher suggests a tame idea. f6, bishop h4, Gukesh, aka g5, bishop g3, knight takes, h takes. Bishop d7 with the idea of going to e8 and f7. Well, there's pressure on e6. It's going to be hard to reroute this bishop. We're definitely going to need to support this point. This is a very weak spot on the board. Like, if you go bishop d7, I mean, white could be straight up, like, trying to strike on that square. Oh, my God, chess.com's arrows. Here I'm threatening rook takes d7. In fact, knight a5, knight b3 hits a1. Maybe I should play rook a1 to show that against knight a5 it's not even soon enough, right? I crack black like this. So we would have to be very precise here to support e6 and probably start with this move order of queen e7. Right, Asher? Yeah, I don't know if we are in better political times now either. Call me tomorrow. That's an open question. I don't know how one would characterize the period in Indian history that Anand grew up in. You know, did Anand have a very peaceful and chill upbringing? I don't even know that for sure. Yeah. French politics are a little bit weird right now, Surya, but I think life in France is reasonably chill. From my recent experience, I lived there for a year last year, and you know, yeah, right now they may not have a government, which might strike someone as, you know, being like a particular kind of political situation to not have a government. But, you know, just going around day to day, there are local governments functioning, and, you know, life is pretty chill. So, Divisio thinks that Anand had a pretty chill upbringing. So, poor and chill. Gotcha, Bhavya. There was a time... Well, that's a long question. I want to look at the position a little bit more. I appreciate all the interesting questions and happy to talk about them here and there, but I also need to talk about the chess position here and there. So to me, this whole idea that we're going to play f6, let me just highlight this as a big deal to me personally. I don't want to play f6. And maybe that's what Gukesh plans to do. It's the only move that came to my mind when I saw bishop g5. I thought he's going to play f6. But I hate it. You know, I hate to do it. e6 looks super, super weak. Oh, Rohan gives a pretty good potential answer to your question, Jacob. You see that? Sports psychology and coaching and fame management have improved across all professional sports. So professional chess players, professional cricketers, professional football players will all be better prepared for the lifestyle and pressure that they live in. That's quite an interesting answer. Asher says, definitely Gukesh has in mind f6, g5. I mean, it's the only thing I see, because if you just move away, then we have to ask what this knight's doing on h5, right? It can't come back without the doubled pawns anymore. Not only that, white could probably play knight e4, trying to cut it off even more. So, could he play bishop e7? Could this be a second move, folks? To get the knight the square to return to? I mean, Gukesh did avoid the bishop trade long ago on f4. But is there any chance that he's saying, yeah, I'll just go here, here, and then bring the knight back when I need to? I mean, it feels like black's costing themselves some time, right? Knight h5, and they have to come back to f6. The bishop's still on c8. Seems like a fair amount of time for white to try and drum something up, doesn't it? I don't think queen c7 is good, Asher. I think queen c7, the knight doesn't really have a good way back, and you're still trying to play h6, g5. That's not particularly more sane. There's also knight b5, which is just a great tempo for white. So this move, let's just say this move's out. My instincts are super against it. I can't imagine queen c7 being sound. Okay. No, like any move black plays has to make sense of the knight on h5 rapidly. So it's either bishop e7 reconquering the f6 square for ourselves, right? Or it's f6. Or Alexa says, give this tempo here. Now there's no queen watching our knight, so we've got a little bit more time to handle this. And now we can maneuver like this while keeping our central light squares sound. Folks, in general, when you're taking a bishop pair, what you need to be careful about is that the opposite color complex remains sound. And this is what has me so concerned about the f6 idea, is e6 becomes weak. We're playing for an extra bishop on dark squares. So in this position here, what does black have going for them? They've got this unopposed dark squared bishop. But the danger is that your opponent's knights are going to attack your central light squares. They're going to break e6. You're going to play e5 to not lose the pawn. And then they're going to get outposts on d5 and f5. You see what I mean? So that's what you have to watch out for when you're the person playing for the bishop pair. When you're the person playing against the bishop pair, you have to say, okay, the opposite color of that unopposed bishop is the light squares. The light squares, I have an extra piece. Let me try and conquer some of those squares and start getting outposts for my pieces. One of the most famous examples of that is the following structure. I'm going to go a little bit afield here for a second, but hopefully if there's not too much lag, I can execute the moves relatively quickly. I'll do something like this. Okay, a famous structure from the Sicilian, G takes f6, originally explored in the Richter-Rauser, but it comes up in the Najdorf and all kinds of other Sicilians. In this position here, black's got the unopposed dark squared bishop, and the main plans for white involve attacking e6 and f7, the light squares. You go f5, bishop c4 if you can, knight e2 to d4 or f4. You try and put so much pressure on e6, which can't be defended by this bishop, that you get black to move the e-pawn, either taking on f5 or pushing e5, and then you get control of a light square outpost. Okay? So, no, Jesse's probably getting up around now. He'll be joining us. It's now 5 a.m. where he is. And he's coming in. My Zoom's doing something weird. Sorry, folks. Hang in there for a second. Okay, so that was quite a weird sidetrack from some perspective, folks. But I do it because it's one of the positions I know best that that talks about my concern with f6 and g5, right? My concern is that we could lose we could struggle to defend e6. And if e6 goes, then all the light squares will go. Does that make sense? If e6 goes, then white's going to get all kinds of nice squares for the white pieces. Okay, Ding's made a choice. And it was bishop g5, the obvious move. Good for him. My sensei evaluation right now, we're at move 11. So it's still quite early in the game. And I do prefer white's position for sure. To me, at the moment, it's 50-50 which of these is Gukesh's plan. Whichever it is, I would expect him to play it very quickly. So we'll find out soon, because he thought a long time on knight h5, and this is the most obvious response for white. So the fact that he hasn't moved yet suggests to me he's not even at the board. Like Ding played while he was in the bathroom or something. Gukesh generally stays at the board a lot. So let me see if I can find video footage of this and see why he's oh, YouTube knew what I wanted. It served me up the player cams immediately.
There you go. YouTube, do the same for me, Bows. Do the same for me.
Welcome, Jesse. No, Gukesh is at the board thinking. Weird. How weird. Well, Jesse and KGB will both yell at him about this. And even I will. Because I'm all for big thinks, but the big think has to produce some big insight. So if you do a big think and your opponent plays the most obvious response, I demand that top players play their next move quickly. I insist that they play, honestly, the next 2 to 3 moves be figured out. Unless their opponent plays something, weird and surprising. All right, let's see if I can turn on Jesse's camera here. Or, add it in properly. There it goes. Boom. Good morning, boss.
How you doing, man? Okay, so London, I felt Ding should have done this long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the cool things, can we go back to move 5 for a second?
Okay.
One of the cool things that I think keeps the London alive. One of the cool things that I think keeps... Hold on.
Yeah.
One of the cool things that keeps it alive, David, is that precisely on this move 5, white has at least, let's see, he's got some good ones, dude. He can play bishop, knight d2, bishop e2, c3, bishop d3.
Yeah.
So all those moves are viable. And bishop e2 is actually even kind of a new one on me.
Mm-hmm.
The real question, I think, on bishop e2 is what would go down on queen b6?
On bishop e2? The big question was queen b6, huh?
That would be my big question about that particular move order. For example, on c3, you're meeting queen b6 usually with like queen b3, knight d2. There's the pawn sack of dc, and bishop d3. I think bishop d3 is also a little weird, precisely because like queen b6 and maybe c4 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But all those moves are playable, so I don't really even know too much about bishop e2. I thought it was kind of incorrectamundo because of queen b6, but then black quickly plays bishop d6.
In the first game, well, not the first game of the match, right? But the first game in London a couple games ago, I think Ding played c3, right? And then bishop d6, bishop b5 check. That was the previous one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, Ding has played the same move in the game. He spent 2 or 3 minutes on it, but he played the same move just now.
When you say the same move, what do you mean?
So do you know the live position with bishop g5?
Right.
So the insane move was f6, bishop h4, g5.
Oh, I see. Got it.
And it's not by far not the most insane thing that's happened in one of these matches. It's just, it's the risky one.
So, David, here we go back just for a second, just so I
Yeah,
get.
yeah, we can hang
So
out on
on
move
move
5
seven, then
for a moment.
move
Yeah,
seven.
c4.
One of the things that's amazing about the bishop e2 move order
Mm-hmm.
is if you imagine I had played knight bd2 instead of um, 5 bishop e2, right?
Yeah.
Then I can get a very similar setup after bishop d6, play dc and c4.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that position at the US senior against Christensen, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But the advantage of this move order for white is, and by the way, that move order I know the computer says is slightly better for white.
Mm-hmm.
And now with this one though, there's a big advantage, and that's that now our knight gets to go to c3.
So if black wants to play an IQP, you've got a lot more pressure.
I mean, just in any position, I always want the knight on c3. The knight's always better on c3 than it is on d2.
Okay.
So I think a main purpose of bishop e2 is precisely this variation. And then, I don't know. I think 5 queen b6 was the testing question. I'll consider that later. But anyways, so I think white's done great out of the opening.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get knight h5 where he tanked forever.
Mm-hmm.
Dang. Forever.
And in response, Ding really tanked on bishop g5.
By the way, like what knight h5 tanking there suggests to me is like he's realizing that although the position is technically symmetrical and yada yada, that white has some juice. He's
Yeah.
got some juice in this position.
Yeah, I thought that the first move Gukesh would look at would be a6, followed by b5. So I would guess that he didn't play his first instinct here when he eventually came around to knight h5. Which means he probably saw something he didn't like.
Although, dude, this is what I'm trying to. I was saying in all my recaps, I was like, "Ding, buddy, you're getting a terrible position as white. Just play the London. I know he can do a bunch of different things,
Mm-hmm.
but play it. It's something you understand. And like we're seeing here, there's little move order things that mess with people. Yeah, it's totally proper for him to do it. So I'm at 0.5 for Ding.
Oh, quite a bit. Wow.
That's just, to me, 0.5 is like when the opening goes well as white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when the opening goes quite well, I would say.
Well, still a lot to work toward.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like when it went well in the last game where he had the last London game where he had the D file, that was like 0.8 or something. And this, nothing too special. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you got to say, David, that this knight h5 stuff, it happens all the time in the London, and it always produces, I think, some of the most insane positions that
Mm-hmm.
are very hard to judge. So it's fun to see. I'm thankful to see that these
Mm-hmm.
people also are struggling over yield knight h5.
Yeah. Okay,
So
so
one of the things, David, I think we'll say, right, is white's definitely better
yeah.
for a variety of reasons. And let's say 2 reasons. Because the bishop on c8 is not out, and
Yeah.
because the knight on h5 owes us a tempo.
Exactly. I agree 100%. White's got tempo and the bishop on c8 that needs to get out. So when he plays bishop e7, he's going to have to spend a move on knight back to f6. He's going to have to figure out that bishop. White's got quite a bit of time. I haven't yet figured out what white does with that time, but white's
Right.
definitely got it.
Now, we should also mention that the bishop on c4 doesn't know what it's doing there.
Yeah.
So, and another thing I'll mention is a lot of times when white has time in these positions, you can try a buildup with e4, e5. But now it doesn't make any sense at all because the f4 square would be gone and because the knight isn't even there to smack on f6.
Yeah.
So that
But you could
plan,
do it the moment the knight comes back to f6.
yeah. Mhm.
As soon as he pays you. So you could try to get ready for that.
One problem with the payment though is if we play if we want to just play queen e2, we have to take on e7 first, and when we take on e7, he wins a tempo with queen takes e7.
Yeah. But you do have so many tempi, and your bishop's hanging.
In some ways, it's easier. Okay, even though white's better, let's just say this question right now is that in some ways it's easier for black because what does black want? He wants to play bishop e7, queen e7, and then just b6, bishop b7 to close it out. Also bishop d7 in some positions, and just say I'm solid. You can't mess with me. I don't care.
Yeah, the next few moves are harder for white to play. I agree, because they have to figure out how do I make something out of my time advantage. And black's moves are prescribed. Just complete development.
Let's see. I'm trying to imagine. This is a very good one for me to try to figure out for myself what I would do.
Yeah. I mean, do you have alternatives to bishop takes e7 here?
Well, there's obviously the end game.
That's the only alternative I'd thought of. So this is an option, folks. And it might seem weird to put the black rook on the d file, but sometimes you can gain even more tempo from that by challenging the rook before black can defend it.
Yeah, how about in that position, David? Like I could play knight e5 right away, for example. After and so in your position after knight takes e7.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
guess
a
black
small
just plays
advantage.
bishop d7, right? They got to get out.
Yeah, so that's a small advantage, but we want more. Okay, so but we'll say that that's one of the things that we're looking at. How to bishop e7.
Yeah. Quantum photon. If there's a way for this bishop g5 to escape all the black pieces here, I don't see it. Jesse, maybe against queen d8 it makes more sense to play bishop d8. Not to get too much into detail here, but
Maybe I would take with the rook. I don't know what the problem is.
But you see
That
the
other
idea
line
here, I
didn't.
leave my knight on c6, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure this is fine, is plausible, but in this one, I can at least play rook fd1 and stop you from playing bishop d7.
Oh, I like Ding's move, Jesse.
94, yeah.
No, I like that. Maybe I'm going to nudge up my advantage off of seeing that. What is Gukesh going to do?
Well, before we get too excited, the default answer is to take on g5 and play queen e7.
Well, the other knight would take, so your knight on h5 is hanging there.
Yeah.
So you have to play knight f6, I think, right?
All right, I'll play knight f6.
Then we trade and trade, doubling those pawns.
Yeah.
Knight e4.
F5.
You're sounding like you don't care.
I don't know. The double pawns don't scare me so much. If I'm black, I'm just like he either stops me from getting my bishop out in some way or he doesn't.
Well, hang on. I mean, now you've got a bunch of pawns on light squares. They're also doubled, so they're not very mobile for rearranging. White's
Okay, I
got
mean, if you can play some move that doesn't prevent me from going B6 or bishop D7, bishop B8, then I'm all for this variation.
yeah. I can't prevent that here. No, but I just like White's position already.
Mm, okay. I don't think it's too much. Also, your bishop on C4 is going to have to move soon. It's not. I think actually, let's just say it again. The bishop on C4 is a tempo that it's not only a tempo, but it's like part of the White's position. That's a plan trying to figure itself out.
Gukesh brought the knight back to F6. Jesse,
Fine. Okay.
fine.
No, I think, look, black is slightly worse. Okay. But
Yeah.
this is not, it's still a hard, White's the one who has to figure something out.
Okay, a slight improvement on this position compared to what I was just looking at is that if here White goes Queen D8, Rook D8, and takes on F6, Gukesh can keep this dark squared bishop, which makes that pawn structure less bad.
Um, one idea now, though, for Ving
Mm-hmm.
is to say, all right, I'll play bishop F6, and then Queen E2, and
Mm-hmm.
then claim that Rook FD1 is going to hurt a little bit.
Bishop F6, Queen to E2, right off the files. And Rook FD1, Queen E7. How much is that going to hurt?
I don't know yet, but that's that's what the first things come to mind.
Hmm.
Uh, and then yeah, because later the bishop, I can take the bishop on F6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I could play the oh no you don't of Bishop E7 here, right? And
Yeah.
then on Rook D1, my queen has to go adventuring, which is the cost of this. But let's say she goes to B6. Yeah, the bishop on C8 is really struggling.
Right. So the thing that White could say to himself when he imagines that position is like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but that bishop on C8's a joke.
Yeah.
We see that dynamic in a lot of French positions where black gets the unopposed black bishop, and sometimes the computer really likes that kind of thing uh, for black.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got a couple ideas. We have David's pawn structure idea. We have bishop f6, queen e2 with rook e d1. So far, that seems the best to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other ideas?
Sure, Knight G3.
Oh, I don't. Okay, but it's an idea. I don't
What do
like
you mean?
it.
Black's just moving back and forth. It's not.
Okay, I just don't like the knight too much on that square.
Okay, but if we
If
play
I was
Knight
gonna
C,
move,
if we play Knight C3, Knight H5 is like repeating, right? So that's why I tried to go somewhere else.
right? Right.
By the way, Jesse, um, apparently they're following the Melkumian Saric game from 2016. Their opening move order was different, but they transposed to it. And I don't think that they know the game, so they're not following it in the sense that they know they're following it. All right, Eric likes the Knight G3 idea. I do too. To me, Knight G3 keeps the pressure on black, but maybe the bishop doesn't have anywhere to go. Knight G3, H6. Bishop F4, G5. It's frisky, but the bishop might be trapped.
Mhm. And then just in general, the knight on G3, it's not doing much there.
So we got to go like bishop e5.
Oh, David, I have a weird move.
Yeah,
Okay, just as this is another option.
sure.
We could play queen d8, rook d8.
Mm-hmm.
And I think tactically we could play rook fd1 there.
You mean you're not hanging your knight?
I don't think so. It's early in the morning. Maybe I am hanging my knight. No, you're hanging your knight, Kraai. You're hanging your knight, buddy. Kraai, stop hanging your knight.
How are you
Dude.
hanging the knight?
Well, no, I'm not hanging the knight. I take it back. I can do this. I can do this. That's a little spicy, but I can do it. So this is actually interesting.
Okay. And if bishop d7, that lets you play knight d6 to try to tickle black.
Right. And if knight d6 is whatever, for whatever reason I don't like, I could also do your pawn structure thing then, because that would be a slightly advantageous version of the pawn structure thing.
Right. Knight f6, gf6. I think with the bishop on e7, black's a little bit less badly off than before. But yeah, I mean, only white could be better with that pawn structure, right? Maybe put the bishop on h4, maybe h6.
Mm-hmm. The obvious question, though, is, of course, knight d6 is like, well, how do we evaluate that?
Yeah.
Black would need to find a move. I'm just saying. So that looks actually, that's the best I think I got so far. Queen d8, rook d8, rook fd1.
Yeah, that's a very nice find, Jesse. I can tell you that it immediately felt more unpleasant for me than before you suggested it. So, okay. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I want to say two obvious things, Dave. We again are following the same pattern where Ding is going to be in time pressure early on. He took on f6.
Huh.
So this was, I believe,
You think he's going to dodge the bishop with bishop f4, sacking the b2 pawn, or he's going to play something really tame here?
queen d8.
Because g5 and b2 are hanging. Queen d8. There's rook or bishop d8.
This feels incredibly tame.
Mm-hmm. Your queen d8, rook d1 looked much more potent. Much more potent.
I'm struggling now a little bit to figure out what's going on. So first of all, if he plays rook d8, then we transpose to your double pawn line.
Yeah, just with the knight on f3 instead of e4, right?
Which seems worse for white.
Seems worse for white because the knight e4, if you were playing f5 against it, I mean, you didn't want to play f5, right? That weakens your dark squares a bit more. Here, the knight f3 is just kind of doing nothing. I guess technically white's still a drop better, though, right?
Okay, David, maybe it's a little weird, but maybe the intention is on rook d8 to not take instantly on f6 and put a rook on d1. So let's try rook ad1.
Yeah, let's try that.
Got a lot of questions about this rook ad1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try taking your pawn. I'm just going to.
I knew you were going to try, and you should. You should.
I should, right? I mean, it's got to be the first question. Just take your pawn.
Okay, so you take my pawn, and then does white have anything here? Maybe, but how about just bishop b5 here?
Okay.
I
Bishop
might have a little
e5.
something, something.
All right, so I got to go f6.
Let's go bishop takes knight.
I will recapture.
Okay. Oh, wait a second. Maybe I do. Rook d8, king f7.
Yeah,
I don't know where to put the bishop. Let's put it on h4 because on e5
sure.
and f4 it seems like. Now, by the way, like yes, I have a cool rook, but my knight is slammed and my bishop is slammed here.
Yeah, two minor
So,
pieces slammed, so it's like one rook against the world. I don't have an instant solution.
king e7 looks fine for black.
You go rook h8.
Rook h8. Worst case scenario. Now I play bishop b7. Worst case.
Rook takes h7.
Fine. King f7, and I think black's better.
It's true that I had taken a pawn on b2, right? So actually, I should be very happy to do this.
Yeah, and you got the two bishops, yada yada. My rook on h7 is a chump. Knight f3 is a chump. Bishop h4 is a chump.
Your entire team is chumps.
Your team is chumps, dude.
Yeah, black might just be winning. I mean,
Black might be winning.
Just queen the c pawn while white fixes one chump at a time.
Now, if this was Ding's idea, like I get why you'd want to think this is like. Okay, so let's go back to the bishop takes b2.
Right.
Bishop b5. I don't know. It's not looking like a solution, right?
Yeah, bishop b5 was easy to do. It doesn't do anything. You can't.
Let me try again. Bishop b5, f6, and let me just go bishop h4.
Okay.
Maybe just king f7. So yeah, it would make sense to me if the white minors were doing something, but I don't see them doing anything.
Right. Yeah. You want to try knight d2 here before we give up?
I don't get it.
It's to play knight c4. Then the black bishop doesn't have a lot of places to go, and you've got knight d6 possibly.
But it'll go bishop a3, bishop e7 if nothing else.
That sounds good. Let's just put that on the board for a second. Here. Boom. Here. And black's ship is pretty tight here. Let's say I give the knight check.
We don't got nothing. I'll take the thing, king e7.
You take the thing. King e7. Yeah. Okay. Okay, nothing. It was going to be hard to find enough juice after the trades there. A little tough. Okay. So that's your rook d1.
By the way, everybody, let's just say something obvious. This queen d8 thing is a weird thing, and now Ding had to calculate some crazy idea. I don't know what else it would be besides like a rook ad1, because taking on f6 doesn't make any sense compared to the other variation. So if you want a double pawn variation, I don't know why you have it with knight on f3. If you have it with knight on f3, it'll be dominated by the pawn on f6, right? So he has some idea. We haven't found it yet. Gukesh is looking too. Because Gukesh has got a choice whether he wants, if he's scared for whatever reason, he could play bishop d8 and maybe just be marginally worse after bishop d8.
Right, so if he goes bishop d8, white
even
can try...
knight d8, it's not like he's lost or anything.
What's that?
I mean, even the sad knight d8, which is not going to happen. I'm just saying, even there, it's not like he's toast or anything.
Oh, he's not good. He's feeling he's got a tummy ache.
Yes, but the white pieces aren't really doing anything.
I'm taking my advantage down to 0.3, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm willing to take it down too. I need to find. I'm still claiming full ignorance about what Ding's idea is. He has an idea. I just don't know what it is yet, Baus.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's look at bishop d8 for a moment since we've looked at rook d8, right? So against bishop d8, he could try to dodge the bishop with bishop f4, but I think he would just play rook d1.
Yeah, I think on rook d1 there, I can claim I'm a touch better.
Because let me just show bishop f4 for 1 second. The black bishop comes back to f6, right? And it tags b2, and again, you're in a situation where it's like, oh, do I have to sack this pawn? Because otherwise black might play e5 and bishop g4 and just develop too quickly, and it's all over. Right? Like if I play rook b1 here, that should be equality for black, right? e5, bishop g3, bishop g4, or f5. You know? To me, that looks like nothing. So I think against bishop d8, white would play rook d1. Let's go rook fd1. So now, at least if black takes on g5, that knight from f3 is headed for e4 and d6, right? That's something.
Okay, and so by the way, that's the only reason we're thinking that that's the idea for Ding, and the way he's done this is to, in this variation, he gets to keep the knight on f3, so that we keep this tension. Okay, a move has been played, rook d8, and then Ding just immediately takes on f6. Okay, I'm going to go all the way down, rook fd1. I'm going to look at it some more, but to me, bishop d7, we're dealing with an equal position, so I'm going all the way down.
Not an equal position. I was going to maybe go down to 0.25, but now you're incentivizing me to stay at 0.3 to argue with you. But I'll go down to 0.25. I'll be as honest as I can. Okay, so here's why I think white's better. They're ahead in development. Black's got an isolated H pawn, doubled F pawns, just some small structural nagging. You remember searching for Bobby Fischer? What's black's weakest pawn?
What's black's weakest
pawn? The Wook pawn. Only the king can protect it.
Okay, let me tell you why I think it's totally fine for black. I think it's incorrect to say white's up in development, because the knight on f3 has to find a role for its life. The bishop on c4 has to find a role. I don't know what it is. And black has very simple prospects with like king f8, e7, bishop e8. So totally fine.
Well, careful. If you go king f8, e7, and white plays bishop d3, who's going to defend your rook pawn, huh?
My Wook pawn?
Your Wook pawn. Careful.
It's especially funny because my daughter is having trouble pronouncing the R's, dude. So
okay.
She'll say shit and like and sometimes it's just hilarious because it sounds like something else.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a 2-year-old who pronounces things much, much worse. And like my second child, my third child loves sticks. But all I will say is when she talks about sticks, it's hilarious. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to pronounce it her way on stream. But I'm just going to say, this was the same with my second kid as well. He was obsessed with sticks. Anywhere we went, he was finding a stick on the ground somewhere and then like collecting them, right? Like they were all like such great you-know-whats that he had to bring them all home. And he had a huge collection of sticks.
So David, let me try to convince you now. So rook ac1 is the move of a man who's not doing much. There's no breakthrough on the c file, boss, you know?
One of my kids is a dog, SB McManus, but three of them are humans. And I was talking about 2 humans because my dog is not very interested in sticks, nor does my dog know how to say anything. Didn't I was gonna say didn't as a question. Rubinstein won a pure rook endgame with this pawn structure. Very nicely.
Rubinstein has a game that's featured in the Gelfand book.
Just king and rook versus king and rook, right?
He walks the king to h6. Yeah. And he's black, but it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, rook d8 does not look like the move of an ambitious man, my friend. Are we ready to bring it down, boss? We ready to bring it down to 0, boss?
No. I mean, as far as I know, white can sometimes win this endgame. He doesn't need to do anything ambitious. Just let black's h-pawn drag him down eventually. I thought you were a man of, like, you know, long massages. What more do you want in a position than for your opponent to have one isolated pawn and you to be in the endgame?
It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. Yes, it's a pawn, but at the moment, like, the f6 pawn is doing a good job. And if I want to, if I want to make my life comfortable at any point, I can play knight e5 and then bishop c6.
Strange moment for Gukesh to be having him a think here, but
Well, yeah, no, especially for a guy who wants to play on forever, you could consider knight d8, bishop c6. He's probably going to take with a rook. But what is Gukesh upset about? He's like, oh no, because remember, Gukesh will he does. You know, most people would be like, great, I came out of the open slightly worse.
I got a black out of the way.
Now I'm equal, right?
Yeah.
And I got rid of the black. I'm great, man. But this dude is like, no, man, I want war.
He wants war, but he's in no position to go for war today. I mean, he's saddled by that h-pawn. Like, he should be thinking about which endgame he can defend here and which one is going to be grim.
Yeah, he's considering. So if you could play knight d8 and then rook c8, then it would make sense. But unfortunately, after knight d8, white moves the bishop
to d3,
and then
for example.
You could play bishop c6 after that, but then your knight is completely hosed.
Right.
But yeah, he's trying to come up with something.
Okay, if he's thinking, we'll put this on the board for folks. He could go like this. White would play bishop d3 almost certainly to attack the h7 pawn / prevent rook c8. We're being told he's away from the board at the moment. And then you play bishop c6, and white goes knight d4. And, yeah, black's a little bit worse, right, Jesse? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's away from the board.
This would make no sense.
He's away from the board. He's taking a poop on this, you know. Now...
This would make no sense, this position for black. Knight on d8, white's knight's on d4.
Yeah.
No.
Dude, Ding again plays to London, gets a small advantage, and is just like, please, boss, just get me out of here. But it's so crazy, David. I was realizing it, like, oh my God, this match, dude, there's not that much time left.
No. They're starting to get towards the end of the runway.
And I think, actually, David, isn't this clear that in this match, it is not acceptable for there only to be 14 games? And this is precisely where Fischer was like, oh, yeah, let's play to the first 1 to 6. Imagine how awesome that would be.
Yeah.
The first person to score 6 wins, dude. Oh,
I know.
damn.
I can remember how awesome it would be from back when they used to do that. Ay.
All right. King F1 played. And now Gukesh, I feel, has a variety of plans. He can play for knight e5 and then follow that with bishop c6.
Mm-hmm.
He can play king f8 e7.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. the C file is slightly more valuable than the D file in these positions.
Well, yes and no. If I plug the C6 square, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, but just because the
That
C file is always going to be a step further away from the kings in these endgames, it's always like a tiny bit better to have the C file. Okay. Just answer us this, Jesse. If black wanted to draw this endgame,
okay.
is black better off in a pure, I'm just going to say the pure endings, right? Pure rook ending, pure same colored bishop, pure knight. Which one?
Okay. The one
is
where he
safer?
has the most danger is in a pure knight ending.
Okay.
Because knights are better with local weaknesses. And he also has more danger in a pure king endgame. And in general, like the pure endgames, like the knight and the king will be similar. The knight will just be more complicated.
So in the Rubinstein game, when white traded the last rook, that was sort of like the end. The king and pawn ending was just lost. The king went to H3.
Honestly, I studied that game in kind of detail, and there was a bunch of places where his opponent could have played better. But it was just kind of like, and his opponent didn't see it coming. I believe it was, I think it was Ready. I think it was Ready that he was playing against. Okay. So, by the way, let's say, well, one thing we should be thankful for is that back in the day, they would have already agreed to a draw. And so here, they are going to fight, and it's possible to get outplayed. I think white could get outplayed here too. So it's not like we should just instantly assume this is going to be a draw.
Okay, idea number one to me would be knight e5, based on what you said about the knight ending being the most dangerous for black.
But how about this, David? How about I just propose to you that black is not in any kind of danger?
Well,
how about we start there, buddy?
I just disagree. I think you're tanking our eval bar here.
But okay, but imagine you're white here.
Okay.
And let's say I give you 2 moves. What do you?
I will play king e2, a3.
Okay, I'll give you another one.
Bishop d3. Those were good moves, you're going to say, right?
Yeah, that's fine. So then you want to play bishop d3. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then?
You're going to keep giving me moves?
Yeah, I'll keep giving you moves.
Okay. Rook c5.
Okay, keep going.
Keep going?
Yeah.
Rook h5.
F5.
Rook h4.
Good. Okay. I still think it's not that much right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
let
me put something to you. Let's say you're not white or black. You're just hanging around at the tournament hall, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly, the players rush off, and Sutovsky's like, "What? We need this game to continue. We're drafting 2 people to keep playing this position."
Yeah.
He's like, "Jesse, you're in. What color do you want?"
I might take black, yeah. I could do either one.
You have to pick. It's $200,000 if you win the game. You pick white or black.
Interesting. If I'm playing a lower rated opponent, I feel like I feel like I've been in a lot of opens where I have to beat like some 2200 or something. And I would take black in that case. Just because there's a slightly more dynamic possibilities for me.
Wow. That is really bizarre, Mr. Kraai. That is really bizarre. Well, we got a strong difference of opinion in the dojo here, folks.
But what do you got it at, dude? What's your eval at? 0.2. Oh, you really think it's 0.25?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently a lie. Apparently the weak player might overplay the position thinking he's much better as white. I would. I would think I
Well,
was much better.
also, one of our dojo end games, it's let's see, it's Capablanca, or excuse me, Alekine is playing as black. Uh, mm, Gosh, who is he playing? I forget. But I had you and Kostya play it out, and it was a position where black had the weakened pawns and a little bit more active play. I remember
Hmm.
it's in the Shereshevsky book, and that the computer, I remember looking at it with the computer, and the computer said it was dead equal.
Hmm.
But then Alekine came up with some interesting dynamic play for black.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That one I believe in on the black side, and I'd studied it previously, so I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Mm. Okay, here's an interesting move. So already I feel like Gukesh is mixing it up a little bit with King G7. Um, let me stress, I think there was a variety of ways that black could have played that. I feel if you really wanted to be weenie chess, the knight E5 would have been the weenie way to go.
Hmm. Thank you.
But
That's what I would have
let
done.
but King G7, by the way, even we need to stress that Gukesh don't play, and even if he does agree with David that he's a little worse here,
Hmm.
he's not going to be afraid. He's just going to keep
Yeah,
playing.
yeah.
So let's try to think about what the intentions of King G7 are.
Can I just mention something about the end of yesterday's game, or whatever the
You,
game before the
they,
break?
yeah, go ahead.
So, you left to get the kids ready
Right.
for school or something like that,
Yeah.
right? And the position was super super dead. I don't know
Hmm.
if you ever saw the last few moves of the game,
Oh, dude, yeah,
but
I did. I did the recap. Yeah.
okay. But Gukesh, he kind of drifted. Like he made the position almost as bad as he could have, while it's still being an easy draw. But being forced to play a few more moves instead of being able to agree to a draw, like he played it a little funky.
Yeah.
So you know, if he's just waiting for the draw to be agreed, he's got 21 more moves to play. I mean, he could drift pretty bad. So I think he needs to play it with more of the normal Gukesh approach, right? Of like, how am I going to win this end game despite my age blind?
Well, let's do this, David. Let's try to imagine what Gukesh is on about. I think White's next move is going to be King E2.
Hmm.
Um, and then is Black? I mean, what King G7 suggests is that he's looking at F5, King F6.
Hmm.
In general, I'm not super happy putting those pawns in the light squares, and I'm not happy moving. I don't feel the need to move my F pawn.
Right. Yeah. Maybe he'll play knight e5 another move, but it's just a strengthening move first.
So, okay.
If he played knight e5 last move,
Uh-huh.
potentially white plays bishop e2 in response, right?
Mm.
And then bishop c6, knight d4. And maybe bishop d5, rook c7, rook d7 is fine, or maybe you just leave the bishop on c6 for a while. I don't know that you want to play rook and bishop versus rook and knight here. Maybe you do. That's right. It's Nosko Borovsky versus Alyekhin is the endgame we're
Okay.
playing. Thank you, Hubskirt. Hubskirt knows the program. Um, so okay, if you think like, okay, maybe this is slightly annoying for black, this knight d4 move. Um,
Hmm.
because now your knight's sort of sitting on e5 and what's it doing? Then we could see maybe king g7 as being like a pseudo waiting move, but I mean obviously not just waiting, but
Hmm.
an improving move which says that the moment your king goes to e2, he's ready to then play knight e5, um, and then he'll be able to bring the bishop to c6 unchallenged and deal with the c file.
Okay. Okay. I think you've delved into you're the fanboy of Gukesh. You delved into his mind, and that's what his rationale is. Okay, I like it. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a fair analysis. We got to move, I think.
A3. That's what I would
A3.
have done.
Okay, so
That's
now
what I
our
would do.
claim is that on knight e5, if we're
Still,
delving into his mind,
yeah,
then it's bishop e2.
bishop e2. And knight d3, rook d1. And black's busted, right? Bishop b5, knight d4. So we can't get too frisky yet.
Okay, but David, let's say now though I can go knight takes f3,
Okay.
bishop takes f3, rook d2,
Oh, nice move.
and I got full play.
Your
The
rook's
reason I
pretty
couldn't do this
good.
before was actually I probably could have done it before too, but I was worried about rook c8. But now that the king's on g7, I don't have to worry about rook c8.
Your rook looks pretty good, but here's what I'm going to do, Jesse.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to keep playing a few more moves, okay?
Okay.
Rook c7.
Okay. But now I can play. What do you mean rook c7? I got rook takes b2.
Vorsichtig, vorsichtig. Rook b2.
Vorsichtig.
I take on b7.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
And now if I want to play on,
yeah,
I got to play bishop b5.
yeah.
If
Like
I want to draw,
Gukesh.
I just play rook
Check.
takes b7.
King e1. No, no, no. What? I'm not giving you a draw on rook b7. I'm playing bishop b7.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I play king e1 after your bishop check.
Vorsichtig. Okay, I'm gonna say that's totally fine for black.
What's your
Uh,
next move, dog?
I don't know,
You're going to
but
lose in like 2 moves here.
kind of like when you were playing that g4 thing, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not gonna look at it.
Dude,
This is a little similar, boss.
okay. After a3, he's played f5,
Okay,
bringing
so
the
I
king
was
up.
actually then my first instinct of what he was on about
Playing a little
is
bit like you.
I didn't like it though. I was like upset. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't really want to put the pawn on f5.
But Jesse,
So I was more with you, boss. I was
right.
like, maybe David's got his a line on this.
Yeah. But Jesse, this bishop b5 position, aren't you in like dying here?
No, but even if you just trade the rooks, David, I know you're gonna claim that you have something there, but I'm
Okay.
gonna just say no,
But let me
boss.
just say this bishop b5, I'm threatening a4 and bishop h5. And rook a7. Come on. That really blew it. So you're going to have to trade rooks with me, right? Okay. Yum. Now you can claim it's a dead draw, and I can claim it looks unpleasant for black, and then we can go back to the game.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
To me, black's got 2 isolated rook pawns that white can attack now, and white's king is getting into the center first. So I think it looks very dangerous, and same colored bishop looks very playable. Very playable for white. Okay. So back to the game. We were just looking at knight e5, bishop e2, folks. But what Gukesh has done is f5, which provides a nice active square for his king on f6, potentially.
And also, I want to say, David has been talking things about like the long-term potential weaknesses of the pawns, right?
Yeah.
And f5 is frisky in my view because it really is committing those pawns to the wrong color. And it's going to be difficult to move them. There's a great quote from Nimzovich that weakened pawns get weaker the further they travel up the board.
Yeah.
That's true here.
Yep.
So,
And Jesse, my Sprichwort is weakness breeds weakness. So every time you provoke something forward, anytime you have a weakness, your opponent can use it to provoke more weaknesses, right? You just keep going after you.
okay, King E1 was played. That's a little fancy to let the bishop come back. And then King F6.
Yeah.
Okay, now do I think it's still equal? I guess so. This is not what the way Gukesh played is just not my first intuition. Now, one curious thing about the bishop on c4, Dave,
Mm-hmm.
is that it it wants to move, but it doesn't know which diagonal it wants to declare its allegiance for.
Mm-hmm. I think
And
it
one
would
of the
love to be on this long diagonal, but the knight on f3 would need some other option. Maybe it needs another option no matter what. Maybe if they switched places, look at that. That would be more of a position.
Now, one of the things that's making me real nervous, David, but I have a feeling Gukesh might want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
is actually to play e5, e4
Wow.
against the tenets of positional chess.
Right. Yeah.
But the argument could be like, hey, I'm going to play e5, e4. I'm going to put my knight on e5. And anytime you do go rook c7, I'm going to laugh at it when I'm just shut it in with like bishop c6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you have weaknesses, but the good thing is that you've got space, so your pieces are more active. So you can do things like laugh at the rook on c7 with bishop c6 and say, who's going to help this rook, right? Because the other white pieces are far away.
And another cool thing about this plan from Gukesh, I'm still not saying I like it, but is to say, look, your knight wants to do something, but anytime it moves, then I'm going to play knight e5
Mm-hmm.
and claim I got, some. I'm not claiming I'm better. I'm just claiming I got something, some
Right.
kind of play.
Like one of the most obvious moves for me right here is knight d2.
But then knight e5
And then
then
knight e5,
fine,
bishop
fine.
e2, and now you'll take the bishop versus knight, right? You'll go knight d3
Well,
check.
I'll probably play bishop c6 first.
Okay. Sure, that's fine. Bishop c6 first, g3, and then you'll take it, right?
Yeah, and then then I can keep playing. Then
Yeah.
I'm like,
Now this bishop is amazing. And that, yeah, black should be okay. And they can finally use the h5, h4 plan because there's not a knight on f3. Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you one other.
Okay, go ahead. You tell something, I'll tell something.
All right. I just want to tell you that on my mind, I was wondering if on some random move from white, black could play f4, e takes f4, king f5. The answer is black can't. But I'm just telling you that's what's on my mind.
Yeah, at some point, maybe f4. Yeah, maybe some point. Okay, here's the interesting question for me, David. A lot of times when we look at positions like this, it feels like black's not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But arguably, I think in Gukesh's mind, like the Alekhine game, there could be an argument to say, look, actually, I have an engine brewing on the king side. And if you give me enough time, maybe I will be able to do some stuff. Now, bishop e2 is played. And now we're going to see if Gukesh is a madman. Well, we're also going to see his full intentions here because bishop e2 is just a simple move that says, look, buddy, I'm interested to see what you want here.
Yeah. This is the move I predicted in my head for Ding. I like it. Classic Queen's Gambit accepted move. Retreating the bishop. It gets out of the way of a very weird knight a5 idea that Gukesh had. Possibly if he wanted it in the position.
I think dude is going to play e5. And this is classically, what they told you not to do, but he is, and really what he's saying, let's be clear, right? He's like, dude, screw your pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Pawns are people. I don't care.
Right.
And I care about activity and things.
Right.
There's a lot of GMs who would scream if they saw e5, but I don't know what else the position, like why else you'd set your pieces up this way if you aren't going to do it. And kind of like things just like, I'm sitting here, Buzz, I'm dinging chilling.
Yeah.
I haven't weakened my position. I haven't done anything, buddy. I'm just sitting here. What do you want? I just want to make a draw, boss. Let me go home.
Yeah.
Do you see another plan besides E5, David? Now, by the way, White's not doing much. So, like, it's hard for us to imagine Gukesh just sitting, like making a null move,
Hmm.
right? But it's very difficult for White to make clear progress if it was just White's move here. At some point, maybe B4.
Yeah, B4. And as I said, the switching around of the minor pieces, maybe knight D2 could be a move at some point.
One depressing, well, no, maybe you can get away with it. He's contemplating the nasty E5. It's a very committal move.
Contemplating what? Knight E5 here?
E5.
Oh, pawn E5. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Knight E5. It might even be playable, but it would then White could at least be thinking that they've achieved something with Rook C7.
Yeah. Or bishop F3.
Yeah.
The position's fascinating, Jesse, but I just have to ask you, do you have OBS ready?
I could if you need to go, just give me like a 5 minute head start and yeah, I can get it
You
ready.
can. Okay. Just
I still
I
haven't gotten, it's funny, we asked like so many times for templates, and I think we did get one, though you never used it,
Well, it's
right?
got three cameras instead of two, so I thought what I had makes better use of the screen.
But they
It was
never
fine.
gave us a two camera one.
I don't think so. And I mean, my nobody's complained about my layout. I think it's pretty
Okay.
pretty
No, that
decent. I mean, maybe somewhere somebody might be unhappy that I'm using this, but I think it's fine.
I think I would just use my I the layout I have for the Dojo game for the Dojo recap.
Yeah. It's just today's going to be a Saturday, tomorrow's going to be a Sunday, and they're both really big days for my kids. So there's like
Mm-hmm.
no there's very low prospects of recovering any sleep during the day.
Yeah. So do you want to go right now?
I mean, I'd never want to go. I'm pretty interested in the game. Let's just see how it goes for a bit more.
Okay. You just give me like a 5 minute warning.
But I do have it in mind that I might be better off sleeping at some point. Well,
Hmm.
no, I would definitely be better off sleeping. I will suffer all day for this.
Did you oh, because normally you're going to bed while the kids are in school.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's still gotta hurt you, I'm sure.
yeah. But normally I sleep like half my night before the match and then half my night during the day when they're in school.
That's
Yeah.
rough, man. You've been suffering for your boy Gukesh, and he's been letting you down, buddy. He's been letting you
You
down.
know, for everything I put in, it would have been lovely if he converted one of those two games in game 7 and 8. But, I was still entertained, so it's fine.
Yeah. So one thing I'm checking in while we're waiting is so Fabi is crushing the St. Louis Masters thing, and one of the reasons I wanted to check on it is Kostya. Dude, Kostya finally won a game, and so he's at 4.5 out of 8, so plus
Woo.
one. Not a great tournament, but he
What?
started with two goose eggs, so
But he's
he's
one of the
up at.
lowest seeds. +1 is great.
No, I take it back. This is weird. Why is it saying plus?
4.5 would be like a huge score.
I'm confused because it's saying two zeros and two wins, so it should actually be four. Maybe I can't read the thing right because it says,
Okay.
anyways. Oh,
Maybe it's
yeah.
+4.5 rating points or something.
No, 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 no,
Sometimes they
no.
do that. They showed like the perf rating and so forth.
Anyways, I don't understand.
Okay.
But yeah, so he made a little comeback. That's a very tough tournament. They invited
Yeah.
me to go play the tournament they have in January, MLK weekend.
Okay.
Oh, I went last year. That's, they're cool, man. There's a guy there, and he's inviting me. He's like, most organizers, they'll reach out once in a while. This guy's reaching out all the time. So I assume it's
Wow.
not just me. It's not just because he likes me. He's reaching out to all kinds of titled players. Come on, come on, come over here. And then they don't, the prize money's not that great, but then they give you great conditions. So all these people are coming to play.
Cool.
Your boy Sam had a rough run, dude. Lost three
Oof,
games.
I saw.
Also inspiring is this kid, Mark Hyman, who I don't really even know about.
Mm-hmm.
He's like some Stanford kid. He's an IM, and he lost to Fabi, but he was like up there in the top boards, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. No, unfortunately, this last day, Friday ish, was the rest day. And so I watched Sam's game with the Turkish IM live. And woo, brutality. Could not understand what Sam was thinking. It seemed like he had a good position and, drove it straight off a cliff on purpose. I don't know what was going on. I'm sure there were considerations well beyond me, but for me watching it, it was grim. Could not understand. Gukesh absorbing the poison of Bishop E2.
It's funny, man. He's like, he knows that E5's real frisky. Yeah.
Yeah, if he didn't know, if he didn't care, he would have bashed it out, right? Does White want to play Rook C4? Maybe, clever her. I was thinking of maybe playing Rook C3 next. A super piano move. I'm overprotecting the D3 square before removing my knight from F3 and allowing knight E5 from black.
But David, don't you feel like at this position, if it was white to move, now B4 starts to make some sense?
I could also throw in B4, perhaps, yeah.
Um, and when we are talking about weakness breeds weakness, if a lot of times a standard response to B4 would be A6, but then I put another pawn on the bad color.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just getting more and more unhappy.
Yeah. And then I've got a plan with my knight D2 of maybe going to B3 and C5 instead of to C4.
Yeah, no, once A6 is on the board, there's all kinds of other problems that black has to deal with.
And Xasi, this knight D2, knight C4, that's what I want to do as well. I just have in mind that after knight D2, black can play knight E5. And then against knight C4, knight D3 check. So that's kind of the meaning behind my rook C3 move, which I'm kind of wanting to play next, is I'm overprotecting D3 in order to make this knight D2 plan even more viable for white and even more of a worry for black. So we need something that we would do if black starts playing rook d6, rook d8, rook d6, rook d8, right? Which is not the most likely approach from Gukesh, but we have to be ready for it. So Jesse's saying we could go b4. And then, Gukesh has to worry about b5 and the knight needs a new location. It gives way before the knight on f3. And that gives white, rook c7 and knight d4. Okay.
Hey,
he's gone
you know what I'm
for the
gonna do,
big
David?
repositioning.
Oh, did he make a move?
Yeah. Knight e7. The point of which is to bring the bishop to c6 primarily. Or at least, when I was considering this move earlier.
Okay, what I was going to say even before this was that I feel like he's misplayed it, and we're now at point 3.
All right.
misplayed this. Okay, so
We're in agreement, Jesse.
well, we were not in agreement before, but he is now like he's fudged it enough that I'm like, yeah, dude has misplayed this. And so I think the default move for white would be knight d4, but also the simple move g3 is a nice prophylactic.
All right, we also have to get straight in and check on rook c7.
Yeah, rook c7.
Super
Maybe.
controversial.
Well, I don't know if it's controversial. So
Well, it is, because my follow-up is knight d4.
knight d5, yeah. But on bishop c6, then I could very much consider knight d4.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's what's controversial. I'm planning to sack the g-pawn here.
But on bishop g2, f3, I think I'm golden.
That was my plan.
Maybe it's hectic with knight d5 takes e3.
Yeah, actually, that is pretty hectic. Knight d5, hitting the rook. Knight e3, hitting the knight on d4. Otherwise, king f2 would clean these weird pieces up. Knight c6?
Knight c6, definitely the question to ask.
Rook c8?
I think rook d6 is probably the prudent way.
Okay, if you say so.
Okay, then black's okay. I'm going to be okay.
All right.
I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, I guess black can play f4 at some point here, right, Jesse?
Yeah. He's okay.
Just live with these weird constructed pieces inside white's position.
So yeah, rook c7, no puedo.
No puedo, really.
Also, another bummer thing is maybe Gukesh is coming to his senses, and on a move like knight d4 could just play, hey, rook c8, thank you very much. And then we go back to basically zeros.
I don't mind rook c8. I will take it and keep playing for white.
Yeah. Now, so in those positions, we can make a claim that white's just a hair better because of the pawns. Also, it's still it's very holdable.
Okay, so chat wants to know about knight to d4.
Right. A knight d4, it's hard for me. We've watched so many Gukesh games that it's hard for us to imagine rook c8. But if we were watching anybody else and we saw knight e7, we'd be like, okay, dude wants to play rook c8 next. Maybe he's got some other Gukesh-y thing. Like we could play e5 there, and I don't know.
Yeah. All right, just so you know, Pruess would trade on c8 happily, then put the bishop on f3 and turn the screws.
No, put the knight on d6, and you're not doing that much.
I am for turn screw.
I am willing to acknowledge that I'd rather be white in that position. I'm just saying the screws ain't that tight.
Agreed. It's just the beginning. Ding played the piano move g3.
Yeah, dude, it's like and maybe it's a cool strategy. Just be like, I'm just going to play these little baby positional moves, and Gukesh is going to lose his freaking mind.
Right.
Also, he's a similar pattern where he's tanked in the opening and now is playing quicker. So every time graph we do Dojo recap, it's like death to his clock, and then it stabilizes.
Yeah. So Gukesh could play rook c8 here again, or bishop c6.
But on bishop c6, knight d4 feels like a thing. It's not that much of a thing, but it's a little thing.
Okay.
G3 is a nice move. Just write the correct color for white. Look, he's putting all his pawns in dark. That's what Mama said to do.
Yeah.
In these situations.
Yeah. Bishop c6, knight d4, bishop d5. Taking the long diagonal first. Or maybe even bishop e4. White doesn't want to play f3, do they? Yeah, I'll go to e4. You can play f3 if you want to. I don't think you want to. I'll go to e4. Now, see, against bishop d5, you could maybe play bishop f3. But now I'm preventing bishop f3 at least. So I really have the long diagonal.
Okay.
So knight d4, bishop e4 is my move now. And then, what do you have? You might have rook c7. I will have to play rook c8 then. And then you could go rook d7. I don't know.
What do you mean on rook c7? I just play knight d5.
Okay. Let me just look at that real quick. Rook c7. Knight d5. Rook b7. Knight e3.
Yeah.
Rook a7. Knight g2. Or what? What's going on here?
Well, also your knight's on d4 is going to hang, boss. So you lost.
I know. But here, if you take it, I play fe, and I've got two connected passers.
Yeah, but knight g2, what are you going to do?
Okay. That's what I was asking. Knight g2. King f1. Rook d4.
If Gukesh could get this, he'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm
F3.
doing something. I'm doing something finally.
Yeah.
Oh, bishop d5, king g2, rook d2, no problemo.
Bishop d5, king g2, rook d2. Nice, Jesse. King f1 and rook b2. Mm-hmm. And black is super active. In the center.
Fine. He's fine.
White's a pawn can get to a6 in a hurry.
I like it. Okay, so let's say that in this position, the tame move for Gukesh would be rook c8, and bishop c6 is more his style. And maybe I don't even want to say it was his intention, because g3, you're not necessarily sure that's going to come. Mm-hmm. So I think I might go back.
Oh, he did something.
Rook c8.
Rook c8. Well, he said he wouldn't do it.
I like that bishop c6. At least I felt like I was moving my pieces.
Yeah, Ken, over the summer, Ding barely could play. And now he's playing quite well. It's really, I think almost everybody has got to be happy to see that. I mean, I'm a huge Gukesh fan, and the thing I was most afraid of was that Ding would not be able to play. I didn't want to see that. So, I think Ding's playing quite well.
Yeah, David, I don't know. It's just so minimal. I'll give him 0.1. I mean, I'm going to go with 0.1 here. Mm-hmm. It depends, how you value these pawns. I don't think it's that big of a thing. Knight's going to come to d6.
I'm going back to 0.25. My bar hasn't moved too much this game.
Yeah. Well, we definitely both felt that White had some real juice out of the opening. Right? He had some real juice. And then he just played like a weenie.
Yeah, I mean, there was one moment where you had your queen d8, rook d1 idea. Mm-hmm. Where I felt that, like, for a moment I spiked to like 0.4 or 5 with that idea. But mostly I've been between 0.2 and 0.3. Just little ticks.
And Zasidina here is kind of with my sentiment. He says Ding is playing well, but the lack of combativeness is frustrating. And yeah, it's depressing is what it is.
Oh, dude. Come on. This could be a different kind of combativeness here. He could be trying to squeeze this one. The rook is the most drawish piece for this endgame. Right?
Hold on.
The knight's the most winning pieces.
I appreciate that you think that White has a small edge here.
Yeah.
But to win this position, you need to prepare your soul for like a
Yeah.
deep grind.
I
And
mean, are you not
right now,
prepared for that every day when you wake up?
well, I don't think Ding is what Zazi is
Really?
saying. Okay. Well, look at the way he played this position. Look at the way he played his other London game. Whenever he gets the advantage, he's not capable of the squeeze. He's like, I'm done. I'm ready to just mess.
The
Even
other
this game.
London, when he was offering that queen trade, that was and repeating, that was lame. That was truly lame. But I think
But
only
this,
that one time.
honestly, even like the only reason this game is like this F5 King F6 thing was very controversial. But I think honestly, Ding, when he played like King F1, he was just getting ready to trade the rooks and just be like, let's go home.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll find out for sure, right? Like if he doesn't try to win this game, I would agree that that will not only be lame, but it will cast his whole play up to this point in this game as lame, right? Like if he made all those trades he played not thinking that he could squeeze, but just thinking he could draw, that was his intention all along, then that's super lame. But if he wins this endgame, then you will all be revising that, right?
But David, okay, but let's just talk about this for a second. Why is white better? I get it. You like the pawns, okay? But I'm about to play knight d6. You have to deal with knight e4 stuff. Uh, and so you're gonna have to play f3 someday. And so then, like, my king is a little bit better than your king, and you're not really doing anything to me. And a nice building move for black is always to play b6, just to put it on the correct color.
Uh-huh.
It's really nothing, absolutely nothing. So at this point, I blame Ding earlier in this game for not for playing the weenie moves to just get an
Mm-hmm.
completely equal position. But
I think what I want to do is maybe trade everything and go to the king and pawn ending. But then your king's in front of your h pawn. So
yeah, the
I
king and
can't get
pawn
the
endgame
classic win.
is not it's not an easy thing to do,
Yeah.
especially if your opponent's king, like here, is already more active.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jesse, can I give you a controversial question from chat?
Okay.
The question is, has Ding played better than expected? Has Gukesh played worse than expected?
Mhm.
Overall, what is the level here compared to, a world championship match? I mean, we've seen 9 games. The match is not over. We've seen 9.5 games. It's a good chunk to start, estimating the level. If he plays knight c4 here, Jesse, oh my god.
Well, boss, what I think I understand what he's doing. I get it. I get it.
I'm going to take 500ths off the eval bar for the knight trade.
Zaxi says to not even hesitate.
He didn't even think. What the?
Now the thing is, Gukesh, he trades.
Oh
I
my
think Gukesh
god.
might actually becoming more mature and be like, okay, sometimes you got to take a draw. Like I assume someone in India gave him a talking to
Uh-huh.
and was like, listen, kid, I appreciate your combativeness, but you got to mellow it out, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to mellow this out.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what we call an equal position.
Oy, oy, oy. Oh. Is that for sure?
Zassi says, don't worry, David. White still has the better bishop.
He doesn't. Black's got the long diagonal. It's not super clear whose bishop is better. To make any progress in this position, White's going to have to play like king f2 and bishop e2, bishop f3.
White still, I would rather be white. It's definitely a position black holds without grief, but I'd definitely rather be white. And f4 could be the next move by white.
He's playing super fast, Jesse.
Yeah.
Super fast. I mean, they only play this fast in professional chess when they're just drawing. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, bring the king around. There's nothing over here on the queen side, right? Nothing over there.
They're playing fast. So f4 makes sense. Pawn on the right color. b6 makes sense. Pawn on the right color.
Yeah.
King d2, fine. King e7, bring the king around. King c3,
Yeah.
king d6. And we got ourselves... now, Magnus doesn't believe in fortresses, but this is looking like a fortress to me.
Yeah. b4, preventing a5. Brilliant. Okay, Jesse. So what do you think of the question about the level here? Anybody playing better or worse than you would
when
expect?
Ding is shown is that when you put him under pressure, he's amazing. Amazing. Like, think of those positions he's held.
Yeah.
Incredible, dude. And it's just that when he gets a slightly better position, which is all you're going to get at this level, he doesn't even try. So, like, it's kind of gross. It's kind of ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're playing quick. F6 makes sense. Put the pawns on the right color.
Yeah, I was going to do that. I was going to ask you about it, but now Ding has already confirmed. Now Gukesh has already confirmed it, so.
Yeah. And so in this endgame, black will just have one pawn on the light square. He can move the H pawn whenever he wants. King d4, just encouraging e5. Mm-hmm. Like, screw it, dude. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Now
I guess I have to kind of concede, right? I have to kind of concede that he appears to have never been trying to win this game.
Yeah. But look, I mean, one of the things, before we get upset about it, is that we said from the beginning that Gukesh, that Ding was suffering from a crisis of confidence, and that this was like the big question in the match was like, well, what's going on with Ding? And we still don't know, by the way. We still have no idea what's wrong with Ding.
Right.
No one knows. Bishop b7, they're just going to dance a little bit. So it's remarkable that somebody could get this far in a match. What do we got? 3 games left after this?
4, yeah.
But wait, I thought this was round 10 right now.
Yeah.
So we have, okay, good. You can count better than me.
Yep.
So 2 whites, 2 blacks. So
that's been known since the Tempe debate.
What's been known since the Tempe debate?
That I count better than you.
Oh man.
The great.
Okay,
Dojo
now they're going to agree to this. See, now you can go to bed, boss. Now
yeah,
you can go
beautiful.
To bed.
Beautiful. It didn't take long, at least. Ding's lack of ambition was lame. I shouldn't have even gotten up for that, honestly.
But look, here's the thing. It's lame, but the guy is very close to reaching the end of this match. If we had it Fischer style where you got to win 6,
they'd be very far from ever finishing this match.
Very far from ever finishing. That would be a mano-a-mano death match that would be amazing.
They'd be about 200 more London games away.
And by the way, like, he got 2 good positions from the London, and he didn't use it. So this has been his best opening by far.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So 4 games left, and I think it's still pretty hot. It's disappointing, but it's also disappointing in an interesting way, right? Because we're dealing with somebody who's clearly an incredible chess player, but has a glaring weakness in their psychology that they can't get over. And no one understands why. Excuse me.
But he's definitely doing better than in previous events, right? He's playing much better than in his previous events, Jesse. I mean, in 2024, he was like losing to Daniel Fridman in a closed tournament. He was, I saw him like just hang a piece in an equal endgame in some tournament to like basically he had like, you know, king on d2, bishop on d6, rook d4 check, taking his bishop, something like that. You know, just like he was really out of it, Jesse. So far from form, and here he's definitely recaptured a lot of his form. I mean, you can feel his like strength.
Kind of, but like what was plaguing him in all those events? It was his lack of confidence, and that still persists here. And he's not in those events. It's a bummer when you have to play Daniel Friedman, because then you're obliged to try to win, and he doesn't have the confidence to win. He's only playing well when he's under pressure.
Okay.
Over the board. That's a flight or fight thing, right? Like you're over the board. We've all felt that. Somebody's trying to hurt me. No, I'm running, man. I'm running. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think the level is of the match? 2,700, 2,750, 2,800, 2,850? What do you
See, that's why I'm rebelling a little bit on that. So I think someone posted that in terms of like that stupid computer accuracy score thing, that this is technically the highest level match ever played.
Which seems dead wrong, and Gukesh was very surprised to hear that.
Right. And also, like, in terms, when I think about a well-played match, like, and somebody playing well, it's that person, you know, tries to play for a win. They have the chance. Whereas for the computer, when they see it go from like, I don't know, if we say that at some point Ding had 0.7 today and it goes down to 0.3 or whatever, the computer's like, okay, that was incorrect, but it's not the biggest deal in the overall evaluation of my computer accuracy score, right? You know, but give me a break. That's not chess, buddy. Come on, fix it, Ding.
So, I mean, we can see that by comparison against Nepo, he played with more confidence. I mean, he was also like suffering and crazy stuff going on and nervous, but he did go after Nepo in a way which he's not doing here.
Yeah, and then in that candidates tournament, I mean, remember that amazing game he played as black against Fabi in the semi-Slav? Oh, dude, what a great game. And so, you know, I don't know, it's really bizarre, man. It's really bizarre what's going on with the guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to give my take on this question since, you know, Isaiah and a few others opened it up so people wanted to hear. And again, the disclaimer, everybody, before I answer a question like this is these players are so much better than me that it can be kind of hard to measure or to judge, right? Like if I say, are they playing at a 2,750 versus a 2,800 level, it's very far away from me. But my feeling is that Ding's playing a lot better than he has the past 2 years. And that Gukesh is playing worse than he played at the Olympiad, obviously, but also just a little bit worse than he played at other events this year. So from that, I kind of extrapolate that they're playing at around a 2,750 level in this match. You know, something kind of like average between where Ding has been and where Gukesh has been, which is not super impressive. I feel like those two games that Gukesh couldn't win was not really his top form. So that's my take right now, Jesse.
Okay.
And we'll hope for the best in the next 4 games.
David, just because I'm about to do this recap, we are agreed, right, that the big moment was when he played knight f6 and queen d8 on moves 13 and 14.
Yes, the big moment there was instead of knight f6 to play queen takes d8 first, right? Queen takes d8, rook takes d8, rook fd1, leaving that tension there.
And also, you had ideas of getting you had some ways of messing with my pawn structure where it was the e4 knight that was left, and that was, I felt, at least an advantageous version of the one that happened in the game.
Right. How did I get that against you? Let me see.
That was on move 13. If you had played bishop f6, bishop f. No, how did it go?
No. I think it was.
Oh, I know what it was.
Maybe with the knight on h5?
No, it was on after knight f6 to play queen d8, rook d8, and then like bishop f6 or something. Or knight f6. No, but that's
No,
that's the same.
It was something else.
Yeah, how was it that we got your version?
Let me see. I'm going to try and find it for you. Okay, here it was. It didn't come up because it was if Gukesh played bishop takes g5 on move 12.
Oh, got it.
And there I would have gone knight f g5, knight f6, queen d8, rook d8, knight f6, gf6, knight e4. That was my position I could have gotten. And based on how the game went, it would have maybe not made a dramatic difference because Gukesh played f5 in the game and didn't really have major problems with it. So maybe it wouldn't have mattered too much.
Yeah, and there's so many other options that he could have done besides the weenie thing. Like, first of all, my idea, I don't know how strong it is with the rook d8, rook ad1 thing, but that's something you could miss. But let's say you miss that, there's so many other rich ideas for white here. You got time, buddy. This is a London. It's about these little niggling things, and then he just played the most weenie of the weenie.
Yeah. All right, folks. I'm going to go to bed, and Jesse's going to record a video for you. I don't know how interesting it's going to be, but he's going to do it anyway.
It's going to be really good.
Thanks for doing the recaps, Jesse.
Sure.
And, we'll catch you. We'll definitely catch you all tomorrow.